Welcome back, everybody. We'll give everyone just a moment to get all logged in. We have an exciting session. Thank you for the multi-logins this morning, but we appreciate it. We're getting ready to bring on the next panel for this session, a woman-owned. So I'm going to start by introducing our moderator, and she will go ahead and then introduce the panelists, and they'll come back on screen for you. So I'd like to introduce Kristen Olchesky. She is our moderator for this session. After earning a degree in sustainable agriculture and gender studies, Kristen got her start in the restaurant industry in the Bay Area. She's been a sommelier at Straight Wharf Restaurant in Nantucket, beverage director at Husk Nashville, and for F10 Creative in Palm Springs. She was on the sommelier team at Osteria Mazza, working with a list of over 1,500 all-Italian selections. Kristen is currently the wine director at Gigi's, and she's a founder and chief beverage officer of Nomatica Wine, where she curates a selection of high-quality canned wine, which hopefully many of you had the opportunity to purchase and enjoy through the Batonage Mentorship Program. And we thank her for that as well. She's passionate about working with high-quality small producers who focus on sustainable practices. So Kristen, if you'd like to join me on screen, I'll hand the mic to you and get you off and running.
Hi, everyone. I could not be more excited that this is actually coming to fruition. And even though it's not in person, I feel you all in spirit. In preparation for this panel, I've had the beautiful opportunity to sit down and talk to each of our panelists for an extended period of time. And I personally left these discussions unbelievably inspired and even more excited to be an entrepreneur. So I'll introduce everyone one by one. We're going to start off with Camila Mathias, our non-wine member of the panel. Camila is so cool. She started in fashion and apparel. She founded a women's empowerment line called Princess Punk, and then renamed it to Rich and Riot, which then through working markets and pop-ups, she became connected in this beautiful ecosphere of Black female entrepreneurs in Oakland, and then started Just Be, a Black women's business community, which has the goal of building up Black business owners and does everything from networking events to holiday markets. And Rich and Riot, I think my eyes fell out of my skull when she told me how many subscribers she had to her email list yesterday, but it is this incredible network just sharing opportunities and resources and experiences. And then she's also the host of the podcast, The Valley Outsiders. Hi, Camila. And then we have Christy Norman. Used to be a fellow sommelier of mine in Los Angeles. She joined the sommelier team at Spago at the young, ripe age of 21, but has left the beautiful city of Angels for Vegas, where she's now the lead sommelier at the Wynn Hotel. And beyond that, Christy is the creator of the online wine course, which I recommend. I've made all of my staff at Gigi's purchase it. It's incredibly informative, and the way that Christy speaks about wine is without barriers or boundaries. It's a personal goal of hers to make wine education affordable, accessible, and fun, which she definitely does. And then she's also, because why not add something else in there, Christy? She's also the co-founder and president of the United Sommelier Foundation, which provided financial assistance for sommeliers throughout COVID and in crisis. And then we have Tanisha Townsend. Pretty much what I was like, oh my God, I get to talk to Tanisha. I am such a huge fan of her Instagram. I have aspired to be what she is in the world. So Tanisha is the chief wine officer of the lifestyle agency Girl Meets Glass. She is based in Paris, very lucky. She used to be in tech, but just, fell in love with wine and is here now. And she also is the host of the podcast Wine School Dropout, which I have spent the last couple of weeks listening to in preparation for hopefully having as even-keeled and as interesting of a voice to listen to you as you have, Tanisha. And she's just, it's one of her missions, I think, similar to Christy, to make wine education more accessible and exciting for everyone. And then last but not least, Siobhan Ball, wine enthusiast 40 under 40, which I also forgot, Christy, you're also on that list. Rising star on 750 Daily. She is the owner and founder of Dirty Radish. Right now she's based in the Pacific Northwest, but will be moving internationally sooner than later. And her travel company connects travelers to her favorite places, wine and food experiences throughout Oregon and France. And she's now expanded her offerings to be consulting services throughout hospitality, educational seminars, and she has an apparel line coming soon. I'm like, Camila, Siobhan, y'all got to talk. So welcome everybody. So something that I noticed a lot in my discussions with you all is the topic of community came up over and over again. It was this beautiful kind of universal thread through everyone's experiences. And I'd love for each of you panelists to talk about how community helped you start your business, have your original ideas, and support you. Christy, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I mean, community was everything. Community was the key to everything that I've ever had. And it's like, I started responding to everybody, every single person online, and having authentic conversations. I started seeing the people that were in front of me too. It wasn't just like online experiences. It was like, you know, when I'd go to a different city, I'd actually like take the time to like meet somebody. And then, you know, when I needed support with my business in terms of like resources or, you know, just general like guidance, like all these people did show up for me. And I believe that that's why I try and always go out of my way to show up for people that request support from me too, because it's like I was there, and it just becomes, it's like this beautiful, it's like, you know, having so many like genuine friends that, you know, where we support each other, like that's the magic of life, I think. And it's like what makes my life feel worthwhile. So that's it.
Tanisha.
Hi. For me, community wasn't as difficult to start building because I kind of had a built-in community with the expat community, and I was already tapped into that just in general, because when I moved here, I didn't know anyone. I didn't even have a job, but we'll get to that part later. I didn't have a plan. So I was like, I need to know people. So I was in all the expat groups, American expats, cocktails for expats, Black expats. I just joined groups. So then later, when I did have my business idea and wanted to put that forth, people already knew me. So they were more than willing to help out, spread the word, come to events and things like that. So that community was kind of already there. And then they actually helped me to formulate the idea for the things that I do now.
Camila?
Yeah, I would say for me, community is just so foundational to my entrepreneurship journey and to my business. Sometimes when I think about it, I just see it as this thing that's always been there, but community has been so valuable. It has actually helped me get to the place where I am today. It has brought me all the opportunities and resources that I have in my business. It has brought me, you know, money. It has brought me even things as small as like a cup of coffee when I was having a bad day. So yes, community has just been such a foundation to Rich and Right and where I stand today.
Siobhan.
Yeah, for me, community was really important in getting my company going because I needed to reach people. And so I utilized the relationships I had built with winemakers and restaurants and wine shops. And that's how I really started building my email list and creating these opportunities, was just by offering my services to pour wine or to be at any event for free, to just be able to meet people and talk to them about, you know, traveling to France or taking these wine tours. And people were really generous with their time and knowledge of running a business. And I don't think I could have done it without what I had created sort of before with working in restaurants and being able to utilize that, because I really haven't done any marketing other than just word of mouth and Instagram, I guess. So I'm really grateful for that part of the community being able to hold me up in that way.
I love Christy using the chat, just said, yes, so much for working for free, but it yielding dividends. Yeah. Siobhan, I think you bring up a really interesting segue into my next question, which, you know, people always want to know, how did you start your business? How did you go from it being an idea in your brain to actually being a living thing that people pay for?
Yeah, that's such a, I get that question all the time. And with my business, Dirty Radish started for whatever reason, with me taking people on wine tours to France, which is not a small feat at all. And I just started, I don't know how to explain that to other people other than I just like said yes. And I put one foot in front of the other and I just kept, whenever something would say yes, I just kept flowing in that direction of the yeses. And then when it would say no, that wasn't meant for me, and it would lead me back to the other yeses. And I really just came up with this cockamamie idea of that people would pay me to take them to France. And lo and behold, they did, and it worked. And now it's parlayed into so many other things. But it started for me with really honestly having a dinner at my house with friends who had already been entrepreneurs or they were CEOs of things. And just, I really had a dinner and pulled out a big whiteboard. And I just was like, let's write this out. Let's talk it out. And whatever you write comes to fruition. So, I just wrote it and it started just sort of happening. And I just kept looking for the yeses.
I love that. I feel like we should stay in France for the moment. So Tanisha, do you want to talk about your experience
I
and
had
how
a feeling you would say that. And I just want to follow up with what Siobhan was saying about following the yeses and the cockamamie ideas. Girl, yes, exactly. And while Siobhan had the winemakers and, did the tastings and started from that side, I started from the other side with the people and what questions I kept getting. Once they found out that I was in wine, because I didn't know what else to say at that point, because I wasn't working in wine, I just moved here. And I kept getting the same questions over and over again. And so I was like, well, maybe more people want to know about this, or maybe something can come of this. So I started doing small group wine tastings. And then people were like, oh, well, can you go with me to a wine shop? And can I follow you around, or can you help me pick out wine? So I was like, maybe people who come into town want this. So then that led me to start doing the wine tours once people got into the city, where we would go to wine bars and wine shops, and I would walk them around, help them order off the menu, things like that. And then now we have multiple iterations and things have changed because, of course, I haven't been doing tours for well over a year. But it just kind of snowballed by, as Siobhan said, kept saying yes and kept going in the direction of what people were asking for. If it was still along the lines of what I could do and wasn't too far off, no, this is left field, then, I just kept going with that.
I love that. Camila, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, my start kind of goes back to your first question. It was just community, kind of sharing with people ideas that I had and thinking about what I wanted to do, and then getting what I call like a little cheerleading squad of like people going, yes, that's a great idea. I think you should do that. Let me know how I can support you in it. And then kind of just going from there. And I went from helping people individually, writing individual emails to entrepreneurs, sharing resources with them, to just writing to all of them at once and building a newsletter that way. But yeah, it just started with that first person that I shared that resource with, and them kind of cheerleading me on and encouraging me to do it to others and more often, and started from there.
The theme of yes continues. Christy, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, well, I don't know, like 4 years ago, I was maybe 5 years ago, I was at Spago, and it was my dream job. Like I had spent 6 months even like trying to get hired there. It was so amazing and all these wines. And I looked up at my wine director's job and I was like, I hate his job. And I was like, I hate it. There's nothing about, like, it's not my skill set. Like some people are just like really good at that. and I just wasn't. And I didn't want to do it for the rest of my life. And I was like, well, what do I want? And like, what am I trying to do? What am I trying to say to the world? And I was doing this leadership program like concurrently. And I really got to thinking like, you know, if I could do anything, like what would it be? And so you start with the vision of the change that you want to see in the world. And my vision is to teach 1 million people about wine, you know, by next year. And it's like, how do you work backwards from that and not like with the limiting, because I had like $10,000 in my bank account at the time, right? And it's like when I was like, oh, I'm just gonna like build this, you know, $40,000, which it ended up being course, right? And you just figure it out. And you start with the vision. I worked backwards, and I would set by when deadlines. So I would say like, okay, so, you know, by June 23rd at 6:00 p.m., I'm going to have my first draft done. And then 2 weeks, and then how long do I actually need to do this? And so when you put all these deadlines, you're like, actually, you know, I don't need 10 days to do this. I actually only need like 2 hours, right? And you start like squishing the timeline. And so that was really helpful for me. And, you know, and following the yeses too, I've always wanted to move to Las Vegas, and it was really hard to leave the giant community of Psalms that I built in LA. But also, like, I've never run a program before, and I would always make fun of like master Psalms and stuff that have never run a beverage program. And so I was like, you know what? I want to do that. I still want to work with wine and like be in it. But, you know, I think the ultimate goal is, you know, in a few years when I feel like I've really done a lot of time and I've put in, like, I love like working with wine and like opening wine and like talking to guests and stuff. So it's like so hard because I want to go full time into my business, but I also just like, I feel like there's still so much learning and growing to do because I'm 27 now, and I feel like, you know, there's a lot of time to go do all of the entrepreneurial things, and I just want to like learn more, and you know, that's it.
I love that. I think also when you look at every single panelist, all of y'all have like 8 things you're doing at the same time, and they're all kind of crisscrossing and merging with each other. But I'm amazed that y'all find the time to do things. And then Christy, we had a question about what the name of the leadership course.
Oh yeah, it's in Los Angeles. It's based in LA, but I think they do virtual ones. It's called Mastery and Transformational Training. I've been a part of that program for like 4 years. I've coached the program. It's incredible, and it really, like, my mom actually just went through it, and she's like, I just booked a trip to New Orleans and like all this stuff. She's like all on fire, and she's like quit her job, and I'm just like, oh my God, what's going on? But you know, that's what happens to people, and I recommend my close friends to do it because I think it's great. It's called MITT. Great program, great trainers, like love everything about them. And I've done several different programs. We have done like, I don't know, I'm all about like doing emotional intelligence workshops because I think it's really cool to kind of see the blind spots that you don't see. You know, we're always walking around and we don't know what we look like. And it's great for someone to just call you forth and be like, yo, this is my experience of you. This is what's not working. Right. And it's like, boom, you know, but you got to be like ready for it. And yeah, I'm wearing a bow tie, very formal today. We're doing a run through like mock service. We're about to open the restaurant, so.
I love that. And going back to what you just said about when you started the online wine course and you had $10,000 in your bank account, I want to open this up to the panel, whoever wants to jump in and answer this first. And also, if y'all want to stay unmuted and be a little more conversational, I think that would be awesome. But so resources. I feel like when you talk to people who want to become entrepreneurs, that's one of the first things that they ask. Like, how did you have the resources to do anything? Where do you start?
I love this question so much because I started Dirty Radish with $0 and 0 cents. And I built my business with a Google Chromebook. So I don't want to hear anybody say, I can't. I took people to France with no money down. I have no credit cards. There's no mommy money. There's no grandma money. There's no loan. There's no bank, nothing. I did this with just this and a lot of time and effort, but it is possible. You just have to look for the yeses. And I totally believe in a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So you ask. So the one thing I like to say a lot is when I envisioned what I wanted people to experience in France, I wanted them to experience what I experienced when I'm there. And that was for me being in a big house together. And I, honest to God, found a house in the middle of the night on Airbnb, and I just emailed them. I had no guest signed up. I had nothing going, barely had the name Dirty Radish. And I just was like, my name is Siobhan, and I'm gonna bring people on this wine tour, and I'd love to use your house. And they were like, okay. They said yes, and we stayed in that house. And they didn't ask for any money down. They didn't ask for anything. So you just have to ask, just do it.
I think this goes back to a little bit about the conversation that we had in the session before about negotiation, all that. Confidence. You don't know what you can get if you don't ask. So for Siobhan just going out saying, listen, this is what I'm trying to do. Do you want to do it or not? Had that person said no, okay, it's Airbnb. She had a list of other people that she can ask. So she wasn't going to stop until she got that yes. So I think being confident in your skills, your abilities, and what you want will help you out a lot more than just having a whole lot of money ever will.
100%.
Yeah, because I also didn't have money I spent money to get here. So I was like, it was no money left to build anything. I was like, I need to eat. So I needed money for that. So for me, it was more of this has to work because I have to keep the lights on and I don't want to eat ramen noodles every day. We just kept working till we got it. So now I can eat steak sometimes. It's nice.
Yeah, Camila, do you want to jump in?
Yes, I love Siobhan's start of the Chromebook because I started with that same laptop, the Samsung one. I don't know if you had that one, but
If you want to murder somebody.
But I love that that's what you started with, and that's it. Like, we are living in the age of information, and it is all around us, and having the internet is such a blessing. And I love that Christy also started with a course, which is also a great way to start. And I would say also tap into other entrepreneurs and ask them what worked, what didn't work for them, and what resources can they share with you that can help you grow your business. The what worked is really important, but the what didn't work is also just as important when it comes to resources, because we're lucky that there's so much information out there, but there also is some, I don't want to say bad information, but misleading information of like growth hacks and different things like that. So I would say tap into other entrepreneurs, ask what worked and what resource didn't work.
Yeah, and then to kind of piggyback on that, when you are asking those entrepreneurs, don't be jaded, don't be influenced by some of their jaded, limiting beliefs that they have about themselves too. Because I had so many people tell me it wouldn't work. And honey, I just got Wine Educator of the Year for my course. They told me it would never work. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. And, people speak from their world and their experience too. And so it's like, if you envision what's possible, I think all of these ladies here on this panel, like, we all had this big dream and we figured it out. And a lot of people would say, how could that happen? But we do, because we're past that.
Camila, I want to touch on something that you just said, growth hacking. So when I was talking to Camila, she brought up this concept that I think, because I'm so far removed from Silicon Valley, that I wasn't aware of, which is proximity to power. The idea that you have to network up constantly, that you have to be networking with people with a lot more access than you have. And I want to pose that to the panel. What do you think is more important, networking up or networking sideways?
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So networking sideways made the people up reach out to me. That's what was super fucking cool. So it's like when you go like vertically or horizontally, like you just meet like thousands of people, right? And you're like actually connecting with them, and then they are contacting you to meet you. Does that make sense? It's so freaking cool. And like the proximity to power thing, like that blows my mind when you say that phrase, because I never thought about it before. But like that, I guess that is what people feel is like, powerful or like stature. And then at some point it kind of like blurs together, and Like, that's so interesting. Proximity to power.
Yeah. I mean, Kristen, when Kristen and I were talking about this yesterday, I agree with you 100%, Christy. I have this in Just Be, we have this saying, we level up together. And, you know, the proximity to power kind of motto right now is like, if you want to be a billionaire, you have to have a billionaire's phone number in your phone. And I feel that there is so much power in the people who are standing next to you. There is so much power in the people that are standing next to them, and that there is an opportunity here with collaboration where you are able to level up together. And those people that are standing next to you and on the side of you can put you in those positions of power, like you said, Christy, and give you those introductions. I've gotten introductions to top lawyers who have done work for me for free from people who worked at a cafe. And so you never underestimate the people that are standing next to you. There's always room to level up together.
Did anyone else get goosebumps? Siobhan, Tanisha, do you want to say anything here? You don't have to, no pressure.
I think they hit it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you never know who you're going to meet either. You never know who that person knows and what they can do. And it's all this, you know, again, just asking and creating the space of knowing that the yeses are going to come and being open to that. And you never know what one path is going to lead you to the next and the next. There's so many things. Of course, they all sort of escape me at this moment of like moments that I just never could have dreamed of happening. And I'm like, I would have never thought that 4 people ago. And then you're like in this new place and you're like, whoa, how did that even happen? And it's because you're following the yes.
Stevie,
Tanisha, do you want to jump in? Oh.
Great point in the chat here too, that it's important to also network with those below you and never underestimate them.
Just to piggyback off of what Siobhan was saying, having like mentoring and like being next to people and then like watching them like surpass you and like shoot up is so cool and like awesome. And then like they're the one that people are looking up to and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is so cool. So yeah, like you never know what somebody's gonna do. And like, you know, 3 years ago, this person just had their WSET 1 and, you know, they were interested in wine. And then all of a sudden now they're like in their diploma, they're gonna be taking MW, like, you know, all this amazing stuff, you know?
Completely agree. Tanisha, before I ask my next question, did you want to say anything?
Oh no, they said it all. Like, you're speechless.
You're like, yes to all.
Right. I'm just like, yes.
So I would really love to talk about failures.
Boy.
Kicking it off to whoever wants to answer this question, but biggest mistakes you've made, things you wish you've done differently or could have done differently, things that you wish you knew.
I'll start us off in saying that I try not to think about anything as a fail. It's just not meant for me, and it wasn't the right time, or it wasn't the right place. If I had any sort of like go backs, it's like I wish I had done this 10 years ago, but would I be in the same position that I am now if I had started this 10 years ago? Probably not. So everything in its time, everything in its place, everything is meant for me that is meant for me. And there's no like big fail that I can say that is like, I messed that up. It's just a learning curve, right? You're learning as you go and you're figuring it out. I don't think I would say that I have failed. I've learned as I go.
Yeah, I'll jump in and say, again, I agree. I'm gonna come up with an original idea in a second, but I agree that I won't call anything a fail. I will mention when I did my very first tour, they booked me online and it was a couple and I was all excited, like, this is my first tour. We're gonna go to some wine bars. And at the end, we were at our last place and, you know, they had their wines and, you know, they seemed to be enjoying themselves. And he was like, so, would you like me to say a few words about the tour? I was like, okay. I should have known by the tone of his voice that this was not gonna go well. He said, well, you first need to know about this neighborhood. We walked across this bridge and I asked you what a lock was and you couldn't answer me. And you didn't know where this body of water went. And you didn't know how long this body of water has been here. And you didn't know things about this neighborhood. And I'm thinking in my head, like, because this is a wine tour, I don't know that part. So he just kept going on. And I was almost to the point of tears because I was all excited about this idea and all of that. So afterwards, I called my brother and he was like, well, I can understand how that's hurtful, but think about it like this. They found you, they liked the product. You just have to better work on the process of your delivery. And so when he said that, that kind of calmed me down. Mind you, he's my younger brother. He'd be this smart. But he said that. And so I was like, okay, whew, I can do this. So my next tour worked much better. They loved it. And it didn't make me quit. Because at first I was like, I'm gonna quit, I can't do it. He's like, no, just better work on your process and your process of your delivery. So it was a learning thing, not a complete fail.
Sorry, tours are so hard sometimes because you're talking about wine, but they want to know about everything under the sun. They want to know what plant that is, what shape of the cloud that is. Like they just have the most questions and you're just trying to talk about wine. So I feel like you, Tanisha.
Oh, true.
I'll jump in here. Well, again, yeah, to piggyback on you guys, like, I don't believe it's a failure. There's things that could have been done better. I don't believe in like good or bad. I only believe in efficient and not efficient. And and some not efficient things I've done, overpaying people for their work, paying friends, and just grossly overpaying. Also trusting people who say that they want to help me and saying yes to everything. Because I think I'm a very like vision oriented person. And so sometimes I'll just say like yes to a human, but not necessarily like checking that they really can deliver on what they're saying. So like, for instance, one of my Instagram followers like owned like a hosting company. Like it's an online like hosting company and they did a lot of business. And so they hosted my website, but it made it really difficult for my developers to work on. And so it actually cost me about $15,000 just because I had to like rebuild the site again, like cumulatively. So that's been a huge pain. And that's again, like a growth thing. I had to like migrate it off a server and like rebuild the whole thing because it was a disaster, but I don't think anybody really knows that because like everything pretty much was going smoothly with it. There were very few like hiccups, but it was just like way more expensive and time consuming than it needed to be because I just said yes.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Oh, I love that you called it a learning experiences. When you said it like that, it's like my mind got flooded thinking of all the things that I've learned during this journey. But I would say that one of my first kind of learning experiences is that when I was starting my business, for some reason, I thought it was super important to get institutional credit. So like, I was like, oh, I need to be verified by a major publication or a major news network or something like that. So I ended up hiring like a person to do PR, but I did not have any of my foundational things ready. I was not doing strategy. I was not organizing in my business in a way that if I did get that press, I would be able to grow and expand on that moment. So I would definitely say that was one of my first learning experiences, is thinking that I needed to be recognized by a major publication or, get institutional credit from big platforms in order for me to be seen as an entrepreneur and a business.
We have a question from Stevie. How have you as women owners approached growing your businesses? Financially, HR, product, etc.
I don't know if I've grown. I guess I have grown my business. It's grown. It's totally changing into all these other avenues of things with the consulting, making wine, tours in the Willamette Valley and France. So I've sort of spread out as opposed to like growing, I guess. It's just sort of getting a bigger pie. I'm currently looking for an executive assistant. And so if anybody is out there. But for me personally, I haven't had that big growth scale yet. I'm looking probably in a couple of years to do that. But for me, I haven't had the need for HR. I'm the HR, I guess.
Okay, well, to
all the R's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
sorry, this might support you. I don't know. Well, about 3 years ago, because I had like, well, I still do have like t-shirts and stuff. So when I started getting really busy at that time, I started outsourcing everything. So I took a week and I basically wrote down everything that I do in a day, and I rated them from 1 to 10 of how much I hate them. And the things that were over like a 5, I outsourced like every single thing. So like getting my laundry done, I got a virtual personal assistant who's still with me to this day. Her name's JC. She works for me full time and does all of the things that I hate to do in terms of like admin stuff. And my mom is actually my CFO because she's a controller for she's been with like Disney and Netflix and stuff. So that's made it really easy because, you know, having an accountant that you trust is very important. It just happens to be my mama. And then just we rebuilt the site so that we could add more courses really easily. So I'm working on, well, I don't want to announce it yet, but I am working on a sake course with one of the best sake educators in the world. And so we're going to collab on that. But I want to do all sorts of different general ed courses. And it's just kind of like, you know, we'll see how it goes.
Tanisha, you were about to say something too.
No, I was just agreeing with Siobhan with not necessarily scaling just yet because we kind of do everything. The one thing that I've definitely outsourced and I had to learn that the hard way was the accounting part. I don't know why I thought I needed to do that to myself in 2 countries, but yeah. So if you don't do anything else, if you don't want to outsource anything else, outsource the accounting. Do that. Outsource.
You have that too. I have an accountant. Yes, so
Yes.
I have one person on my team, but like their accountant.
Yeah, that is so necessary. And then everything else, I mean, figure it out till you fake it till you make it, like they say.
I agree with the outsourcing of the accountant. I love that. And for myself, I would say I'm preparing myself to scale and get larger. And one thing that's kind of helping me through that is I have an advisor that I'm working with who is the leader of an accelerator program. And so just kind of learning strategy with other entrepreneurs from an advisor who helps with entrepreneurs scaling and growing and putting systems in place. I would say that that's also probably a really good thing to help scale as well, is putting systems in place so that you're not doing everything and that they can just help you grow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have another question from our audience. From Jessica Sierra, curious about if it's important to certify your company as women or minority owned to appeal to a corporate audience looking to highlight your amazing businesses. Are any of you certified?
I didn't even know you could do that. I have no idea what you're talking about, but should I do it? Anybody?
It is.
Oh shit, I don't know.
It is a lot of work.
What else do you need other than?
I was gonna say, Christy. I was like,
I'm sorry. Like,
Okay, sorry.
we had started going through the process to be a woman-owned business certified and a certified LGBTQ plus owned business, and the amount of paperwork for a small team, it was just not possible for us. You need tax.
I would say for me, it doesn't feel worth it at this stage in my business. If you can't put this together, then I don't know what to do for you. Certifications are a lot of paperwork. They're costly. I feel the same way about wine when we're talking about organic or biodynamic certifications. I think it's just a lot of hoo-ha, hooey. I'd be more about people practicing certain things, and the same thing with yeah. That's why I started this business, because I was tired of not working for a Black woman. I do.
Yeah. I am not, I also, like Christy, didn't know that that was a certification that you could get. But I think besides coming certified, I think if you let your audience and your customers know that that is one of your core values, I let my audience know and my customers and my readers know one of my core values is I love to support women and women of color, and more specifically Black women. And everyone knows that about me. So I haven't necessarily had to get certified in that, but they know that it's in my mission on my website, and it's a value that I hold for myself in my business.
That brings up something that I definitely want to dive a little deeper into, how your core values relate to your businesses. I feel like Camila, you kind of started there talking about how it almost created your business.
Yeah, just having it's interesting too. I mean, core value is very like, that's like the technical term, but I also am just kind of like Siobhan of like, I love women, I love Black women, I love women of color. Like, I want to help us grow and become successful and make money and be rich. So that's my core value. That's my intention. That's a mission of mine with my business. And yeah, I just stated it. And so hopefully my community knows.
Can I jump in? So the biggest thing I think that I learned this year is that if you really want to stand by your core values and what you believe in, sometimes it's important to give up money, that you're gonna lose money, and like know that like it's important. So like I won't say specifically what situation, but there in my I was doing big virtual events, and it was like, you know, few $1,000s, you know, a month that a brand would pay me, and the brand owner said some gross shiz online, and it was like not okay, and so the first thing that was the most important, I says, I'm not taking any money and I'm not doing it. And like you have to rebrand and like do something else and pivot and shift and say yes, and I'm grateful for it, because this is like one of those moments where you get to like actually be your values, and it's going to be tempting because capitalism.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Can I just say, I 100% love that. I agree with that, because, and that is what's really important about setting your core values, is that when people come to you that are not in alignment with who you are and what you stand for, it makes it that much easier to say no.
People really, our money is what makes all these things happen, and following the trail of money. There are definitely wineries even in the valley that I will not go to because I know where their money goes. And people will ask if I'll go there, and I just say, no, thank you. No, thank you. I say, no, thank you. I'm nice about it, but no, I'm not doing that, or I'm not going to participate in that thing. And our values do have to line up. And it's a crazy thing that you have to become an entrepreneur almost to do that. And you're trying to, even when you work in places, to try to show them like, hey, our money has to go to good things and follow the trail of where the money goes. And I can't believe I'm explaining that to some of these former employees or employers that I've had in the past. And it's crazy, which is why even more reason for me to do my own thing, so I can know where my money goes, and my time and my face. I'm sure all of you on this panel have been asked as of the last year to do more things than you've ever been asked in the whole time you've been being an entrepreneur or being out here doing the thing. And you're like, but why now? And why not before? And so these are conversations that we're constantly having. I want to make sure our values line up for real, but for real.
Not just because you'll write me a check. Anybody will write me a check, bitch. Sorry.
Yeah. Money is here. It's like, I don't want to get too deep on it, but money is like up here. I think a lot of times when you're starting out as an entrepreneur, especially, like, people are so worried about money and saying no because they're like, oh, I got to get this check, I got to pay my bills, but there's more right behind it. I just said no to somebody. I just said no to someone. And I was like, nope, but I really want to go to France in August. The next day, another person called with even better offer, with more money. So I bought the ticket to France. I'll see you in August, Tanisha.
I want to say about that. Also, it's very important to be very clear what your core values are and what you will and will not accept. Because a lot of times when you first start out, you're coming from, I don't know how better to say it. You're coming from like a place of lack because you're like, I really want this to work. I really want this job. I really want this client. I really want this contract. So you think you have to say yes and maybe compromise yourself because you aren't very clear on what it is you really want. Be very clear on what you want, what you will and will not accept, like write it down even. So then when those things come up, it won't be a matter of, oh, it's this much money. Well, what about this money? You know that's something you don't want. Say no, walk away.
And don't be afraid to say no, that there's not going to be another thing after it. There's so much opportunity out there for whatever it is you want to do, whatever crazy idea you have, whatever business you're doing. I promise there's somebody who wants what you have. And a lot of times, especially for me, I can't afford to go on my own wine tour. I can't afford my own wine tour. So to think that someone else is going to pay me to take them on this wine tour, I had to get out of my own scarcity mindset, get out of my own way and know that there's someone out there that has the same values about going to places that are sustainable or whatever the thing is. I had to get out of my own way and believe that there's other like-minded people with the money to pay for this tour or whatever the thing is I'm selling.
Yeah, I want to just jump on that right quick because I agree with you 700%. And then this also goes back to the panel that they just had about negotiating and money and things like that. Getting out of your own mind and getting out of your own way. Like I'm not my target market when it comes to tours and my offerings. I'm not my market. So I can't price it based on me. But I used to think about it in terms of like, well, would anybody pay this much? Because I couldn't pay that much. I'm not my market. So it doesn't matter what I can pay. It matters what these other people can pay and who I am targeting and who I'm attracting. So once I figured that out and got out of my own way, well, the universe is abundant. Like Siobhan said, things will come. If you say no to this one, a yes will come after that.
And no offense, not just out of your own way, but you're not your own market, but your friends might not be either. So your friends might be telling you, oh, no one's gonna pay that. And it's like, I hate to say it, but it wasn't for you, friend. I was marketing to you. Sorry, it's not meant to be rude, but that's just, it costs what it costs, it's not cheap.
I love that. Speaking of money, I'm getting a lot of questions about finding investors, fundraising, loans versus equity.
Oh, okay. Well, first I want to say, I would encourage you to reach out to your networks first and get support, like even for just like as your grassroots like going, because like for instance, somebody told me this and it really resonated with me. They were one of the richest people that I like know, and they said giving makes people feel good and it allows them to be a part of your journey, and like it helps. It's like when you win, they win too, because they know that like they supported you in that time that you needed it. But personally, I raised all the money. I made all the money. I like went crazy and I started like consulting as like a 23-year-old, and I would charge like $1,000 like per like thing that I would speak on. And I asked for, it was like 5 times more than like I would normally ever charge, and people like would pay it, right? And like I own 100% of my business right now. And I think I'll probably next year I'll do a round. So I don't know if somebody wants to speak on fundraising. Kristen probably can.
I definitely can, but I feel like Camila, something that really struck me when we were speaking, I've raised, oh my God, 3 rounds now. It's a lot of work, but Camila, I feel like has gone out of her way, and Rich and Riot was such an inspiring idea to me, because you created this platform with just a ton of opportunity, and just sharing that knowledge, sharing, hey, this person, this is a grant, or like, here's a list of 500 angel investors who are looking to invest in this type of founder. Do you want to talk a little more about that? Because I was just so stoked yesterday.
Oh yeah, I'll drop my email list sign up in the chat in a moment. But yeah, so I share information every week about like grants, angel investors, accelerators, funding opportunities for different entrepreneurs and different things like that. And I think that funding is something that's it's very interesting. I would always say do your research before you take any money. But I love the idea of fundraising from friends and family. I think that a lot of times they will be your initial support and your support system, and figure out what is the best for you. I know in the Bay Area and particularly in Silicon Valley, there's, one type of fundraising that's very popular, right? Like it's VC funding. And that is good for some, but it's not for everyone. Right. And so I would just say, really look into what you want to do with your business, how you want to grow, how big you want to be. That also will affect how much money you raise and your funding as well. And I was just thinking about what Christy said about people like to give you money because they want to be part of your journey. I've had people at Just Be last holiday season, we fundraised for the first time. We raised $250,000 in 30 days. I don't recommend it. It was extremely hard. But one thing that we learned was that some people invested in us only because they said, I want to invest in you because I want to be close to you. I like what you're doing and I feel like you're going somewhere. And so I'm investing to be part of your journey, but also because I want you around. I think that you're going to really grow into something. So yeah, I would just say learn, figure out what's the best for you. And yeah.
And then if you don't mind, do you want to break down a little bit the difference between angel investors and venture capital? I feel like that's a
Oh, I don't know if I'm the expert on that. Venture capital, you're going to be giving up equity. Angel investors, you'll be giving up equity as well, but sometimes the terms will be a little looser. Grants, a lot of times, are a great, great way to start because they are money without any ties. And I really, really recommend you start there. Crowdfunding, which is what we did, as well as like grants and some angel investors, is also another way. And this ties back to our first question of community. If your business or you already have a community around you, 9 times out of 10, they want to support you. Even if they don't buy your product, sometimes they'll invest in your business because they want to be, like Christy said, part of your journey. So yeah, crowdfunding is a way, VC, angel investors. You can also, go through accelerator programs sometimes who will fund you, but take a small percentage of your business to go through that fund, usually between 5 and 10%. And yeah, so just kind of learn as much as you can about these different avenues and figure out what is the best for you. There's also loans in the Bay Area as well. I just want to say these 2 programs really quickly that are really good. Runway Project is based out of Oakland, and Main Street Launch are good for business loans as well.
and everyone needs to sign up for your email list because it's so incredible. I got another question. Do you recommend resources for figuring out alcohol-related licensing and regulations state by state?
Can you repeat that question?
Do you recommend resources for figuring out alcohol-related licensing and regulations state by state?
Like, is there a one particular resource? No. I mean, that I have. I don't know if anybody else wants to speak on that. I ask humans.
No, that is a tough one. It's really, really tough. Doing these virtual tastings all last year, I had so many people coming and being like, oh, we want to do a virtual tasting and we're going to just ship all this wine to people. And I was like, no, you're not, because every state is different and has all these different rules and you can't get anything. That's a really tough one. I don't even know where you would begin to try to figure out outsource, and the chats are saying outsource compliance.
I will say my compliance lawyer is my favorite person in the entire world. And that was the second hire we made after an accountant. Because that's confusing. So I want to kick this question off to you first, Tanisha, but I feel like all of you are incredibly strong in this area. I want to talk about social media. So there's been a lot of discussion going around lately about the pressure on female entrepreneurs to be influencers. That pressure from subscribers, from investors. It's been said, I'm not saying which way, I think one or the other, that it's more important for women to be influencers than it is for male entrepreneurs. What do you think about that? Because you are, I would say, an influencer.
Okay, I can agree with the influencer part, but I think if you are an entrepreneur, you have to influence someone to do something, like just in general, as part of your business. Whether you are trying to sell a product, a service, you are trying to influence them to make a decision towards you or your product or your service. So you have to be influential. As far as social media goes, I think a lot of that, people look at that and call them influencers, but again, you are selling your product or service. So you are trying to influence someone to work with you, buy from you, that kind of thing. I think women just, I can't say that men don't do it versus women don't do it. Women just do it better. So there's that.
Christy, I know you're probably itching to jump in and say.
Well, I mean, recently I could do a dissertation on this. It's really interesting because there's been so many conversations recently, especially from the UK, about like how influencers are bad in the wine industry and stuff like that. I read this nasty article about it. I just thought it was horrible. And I would consider myself a professional with influence, right? And there's no shade to people that make money from. I've made influencer money just from like posting something. I think it's great, And I think like entrepreneurs, like just in general, like we're gonna use all the tools that we have. So like, I can't really speak to saying that women have to do it more than men. I think for me personally, I would love to see any entrepreneur that I'm interested in investing in or whatever, using all the different platforms that they have. However, I think it's a vehicle and a tool, and I think that every entrepreneur should experiment with it if that's another channel of selling for them. Now, it takes a long time to build, and it can be very challenging, especially like with the new algorithms and stuff like that. It's very difficult to grow. But again, it's like if you do have actual influence, you will, right? I mean, so it's about building like your actual reputation and it should reflect who you are in real life. And when there's a disconnect there, I think people recognize that inauthenticity and they don't resonate with you,
Joanne, I felt like you were about to say something, but I cut you off really quickly.
Oh, no, I just think that, social media as of right now is sort of a free tool to market yourself or to become an influencer. So if you're an entrepreneur with a product or a service, it's a great way to get yourself out there. I do think that there's all sorts of craziness with the algorithms and all these other things that can make it or break it, if you will. I give it very little, of my time at this point in my sort of growth of my business. I have found that I grew exponentially when I became really honest and just really being very authentic and just being myself and speaking on whatever was going on at that time for me. But I also feel like I can't be that person that's so pressured, like I have to do it on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and it has to go out and I have to do it, and it has to be amazing, and it has to get all these likes, and it's not that serious. It really isn't. It's really not. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to continually be doing those things. But I mean, if a week goes by and I don't post anything, a week goes by and I don't post anything, I just have to let that sort of go. But it is a really useful tool to try to at least build something for your business.
Camila, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I do think that social media is a tool. It's not your business, but it's definitely a great tool for your business. Um, I, yeah, I go back and forth with this a lot because I do think that visibility is important, but I also think that if you're not able to show up as you are and who you are and the way that you are, and sometimes that means not showing up, I think that should be accepted as well. And I love what Christy said. I thought about this as a professional with influence. I think that a lot of time women who are experts in their field or in an area get seen as influencers and not as an expert in their field. So I think that making sure that, maybe there's a distinction between someone who's an influencer and someone who is an actual expert with influence.
Well, also, it's supposed to be like wine is supposed to be fun and it should be sexy, in my opinion, like it can be. And so if someone wants to post a photo of them, in a risque position, I'm like, yes, all for that, because any eyeballs to wine is good. And it's so funny because like 8 years ago, the fashion industry really went through this. I don't know if you can speak to this, Camila, but like,
Yeah.
our industry is so far behind. Speaking about wine, we're so far behind, and so everyone's like hating on these influencers and these people who learned how to use social media, and it's like those are the people you should be paying to teach you how to use it, because you're falling behind. And like that's the very conservative, like slow moving wine industry that we have. And it's like if you follow Gen Z and like what's going on, like I feel like I'm always on top of trends and like the first to do some things like in this industry, because they're not paying attention necessarily to like what's going forward. And so it's really easy to like be one of like the forefront humans in the wine industry if you're just paying attention to what's already happening. Then you can do it in like a year or two when it's acceptable,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that 100% to what you said, especially with the fashion industry, there was a little bit of gatekeeping there, right? And it's hard to keep a gate closed when someone else has the community and the audience. So yeah, there was that in the fashion industry 100%. And I'm like you, if it gets people in the door, so what? Let's teach them, let's train them, let's, share our information with them.
I love that. I think I'm only gonna use the phrase expert with influence from now on. I really wanted to talk about this today.
Wait, hold on. You know who actually coined that? Who told that to me first? Julia Coney. Julia Coney.
If you're still here, you are a legend and an inspiration.
We love you, Julia.
We love you, Julia.
I'm like, are you still here, Julia? I really wanted to talk about mental health too. I think a lot of data has been done on mental health in the entrepreneurial community. Entrepreneurs tend to rank their mental health lower. And so I wanted to kick this question off to you. How do you prioritize yourself, your relationships, your family, your friends? How do you take care of you at the same time as managing the growth, development of your business and not letting the stress eat you alive?
I'll let you know when that happens. No, I'm just kidding.
But really.
Right? The number one thing I did is turn off the notifications of emails on my phone. Like, no joke. That is like done for two reasons. One, I can't take it. It's too much, but also because I want to be focused when I'm sending an email. And I feel like when you do it from your phone, it's not the most thought out response sometimes, and then prioritizing. We say we don't have time, but really it's just what do we have, what do we make time for? And for me, when it comes to the work part of it, because I can get overwhelmed very easily with doing so many things. I have like 10 invoices that need to go out right now. But it's really, for me, the thing I did is me not responding to this, keeping someone else from doing their next task or their next job. And that's what gets pushed to the front. And then everything else can wait. And if I have to take a couple of days off, I have to take a couple of days off. I just do it with no guilt about it at all. And that's my number one, hands down, thing that I do for myself.
I'll jump in. I have a therapist, first of all, super important. And then always therapy, guys. Therapy is important. I recently just got my entire life on a project manager. So I used Asana for like my web development and like other projects. And I recently did it for my life. So like my assistants like can access, so I can create tasks for them and they can prioritize them. I can see when they're in progress, and it really helps like not keep it in my brain, because that was difficult. I also don't take appointments after 7 p.m., which I know it's like sounds like, oh, well, that's really late or whatever, but like actually creating that space for myself. I also turn off notifications on my emails. I mute them from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. because I was waking up at 6 a.m. to check my email. And it was like really unhealthy because I would go to bed at like 2 and then I'd wake up at 6, like with anxiety, like needing, because I'm like, East Coast woke up, you know? So.
I would say this is not relaxing at all, but I schedule it. I think it's okay to schedule like time to relax and time for just rest. And if it's on my schedule, I stick to my schedule. And a lot of times too, what I'll do is just book it and not think about it. So I'll book maybe a trip or buy a ticket to something that I want to attend, just to make sure that I like follow through and actually like rest and do it. And another thing that I do is I actually meditate with a group of people every morning in a Facebook group. And it's kind of like an accountability partner to make sure that I kind of reset myself and quiet my mind every morning. So I have accountability partners for rest and wellness, and I schedule it. And once it's on my schedule, it has to get.
Tanisha.
Okay, so I wish I had the good stories like Siobhan and Camilla, and Christy is single-handedly the most organized and most planned out your life person I have ever met. I strive to be like you, my goodness, but I'm actually horrible at this. So I'm the one who is gone, and we'll talk about the negative. I'm absolutely terrible at this. I feel like if I don't respond to something right away, it's going to get away from me. I schedule in relaxation and then still work through it. COVID made this worse for me because I didn't have anywhere to go. It was no way to stop anything. Don't take appointments after 7. Well, why not? I can't go out. I can't leave. Curfew's at 6. I'm home. Why not just work? So that's something that I'm actually really trying to work through now. Luckily, I do have some friends that are like, girl, are you still working? I'm like, well, I mean, just a little. And so then they'll make me stop because they're like, okay, I'm going to call you and then we're just going to talk. So that way you'll get out of the mode of working. And so now you're talking. So then you go do something else. Because I felt like, okay, I spend my time watching Netflix or I could work. Like, why don't I work? Because I mean, I'm not like super successful. So I don't have this downtime. I don't have time to chill. But I am definitely working through it. I know it is not the best, but I just wanted to be honest and transparent here. So I am working on that.
Well, I'd like to say something on that because I think a lot of people view, it's like when there's the avalanche of work and you feel like you can't catch up. I actually like say hi to it. Its name's Emily when it comes because that's a moment to me that one of my processes needs to be made more efficient. And I go, yes, this is the elbow of stress. Like actually last year when I offered my online wine course for free for hospitality professionals who are out of work, literally I launched it on like March 29th. And then on April 1st, I woke up and I got 2,000 messages across. It was literally 2,000 people that signed up that day, and they were messaging me to get access. And I just cried for like hours. I cried for like 2 hours because I was like, how am I going to do this? And it's just like this frantic, there's not enough hours in the day. And I was like, oh, like I can fix this, like, but it needs to change. And so a lot of people would say, so many people in my life have been like, slow down, slow down. I'm like, no, this is the part where I'm like, oh, okay, like keep your foot on the gas and just tweak the mechanism, tweak the system, because something's not working and you're like, clearly I've identified the thing that's not working. So what am I going to do going forward so that this doesn't happen again? Right. And then that's why it's like my schedule, or like people that I outsource things to, are so important to me, because it's like, if I don't have them, like I know what happens. So I'm really good. I don't have to like force myself to like be on some crazy schedule. It's just like, it happens because I know the pain, you know. So I'm not.
I know this is going to sound crazy, especially for this group here, but one of my first mentors was a high power sales, pharmaceutical sales, millions of dollars sales guy. And he was a white male making a lot of money. And I would ask him about this, that, or the other. And I just started being more like him. And I tell you, it works. It's a crazy thing, but the mediocrity of it all, it just worked. Like I just started being more like him, like, oh, they can wait, like that can wait, or this can wait, or I'm going to take my time for myself, because that's what he was doing and making all this money and being in his position. And it was like an eye opener, because especially as a woman, you feel like you have to jump 10 feet higher. And as a woman of color, you really have to jump even higher. And I was like, why am I doing all this, like stressing myself so much and feeling like I'm trying to produce, and feeling like I'm just sort of spinning my wheels. And the more I relaxed into the yeses and like what felt right, when it felt right, the more I was able to actually accomplish. And I don't think I would have done that had I not just taken that like little bit of mediocrity from him, from that mentor, but it worked. It just blew my mind. I was like, wow, okay, well, it does work.
I love that. And then Christy, I know you've got to run, got to get back to work. I know, I'm very sad. Do you want to say anything before you go?
Oh, I just typed it in the chat. I make things really difficult for people who don't do my process. So people who are like, oh, well, I don't want to do that. I make it like way more difficult to like train them to do it the way I said originally, because that's what fits in my box. And like, I never would have, you know, as a woman of color, it was like, before I thought of myself as a woman first. And so I would always like act through the lens of like being a female or like being an Asian woman. Right. And then when I like lost that kind of, I like, it really took a lot of like working through, I guess, to like be my authentic self and not acting as a Asian woman, but acting like me first, and demanding that people respect me, speaking up every time someone does something that's not, you know, in line with the vision of what we're creating together, you know, and just really being adamant and not being apologetic about it. I don't say I'm sorry anymore. I'll say I apologize for something, but I'm not sorry anymore. And I wish that, like, you know, more women really, like, I wish that we all could step up and do that, because that's what we need to like really have equality in this business, and like to really break those barriers that we've had. And like, don't be afraid to ask for triple. That's that's my advice. But I love you all. Thank you. I'm so sorry I have to run. I appreciate you. I just said sorry, but love you. Bye.
Bye, Christy. Thank you. And then, so Christy brought up an interesting point. How do we support each other? What do y'all wish that you had from other female entrepreneurs? What do you aspire to give?
Probably should do it more, but I wish that I wish that more people would like check in, like truly check in, whether it's just like have you had water today? Did you sleep okay? like I try to send little messages to people to let them know I'm thinking about them, but I definitely think I wish more, I had a little bit more of a community that was like really checking in about just your mental health. Like I'm honestly like, I have been sick all week and I like was like, I gotta come today, even though I'm really sick, you guys. But I'm here. But like, yeah, it's been a tough week. Like I don't even want to look at the emails that I've missed, but I just think we should probably need a little bit more community of checking in on each other, because especially if you're like me, I'm single, I live on 50 acres alone in the valley. Like I'm very isolated. It's just me and the deer and the birds. That's all that's it. So it's a little bit isolating as an entrepreneur, but I think also asking too.
Camila or Tanisha, do you want to weigh in, or should we move on to my next question?
I'll just say really quickly, just sharing information is what I think. I mean, I'm a little overwhelmed with all the sharing of the information to me, but I noticed that like when we share information with each other, we grow faster. So just share information. Even if it's something small, like I've had people share worksheets with me that have changed my life. So even if it's something that you think is like, I don't know, would anybody else like this? Like share it anyway. You never know.
For me, I think it's just things like this, to be around other women who are killing the game, looking at everyone in the chat and their inspiration there. Yeah, you said it, I agree. Yeah, that is something I need, because being on a whole nother continent, and sometimes people understand me because French, and sometimes they don't. But to be in this situation and have people, cheering me on and chatting and all that stuff, this energy, I needed this.
I love that. The energy is palpable from the chat right now. Y'all are like such cheerleaders. And I really wanted to talk about this. I know we have 10 minutes left. Imposter syndrome. Have you encountered imposter syndrome? Have you had to work through it? How have you worked through it? Are you still in the process of working through it?
I work through it every day. Like I usually wake up and look in the mirror like, girl, what are you doing?
Every day.
Like, girl, what?
Every single day.
I show up at places like, are you supposed to be here? And then I see my name on the list. I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah. Like I was in Italy last week and I was judging a wine competition. And I was like, oh, well, they just asked me because I'm in Europe and, it's easy to get me here. And then I thought about it. I was like, Tanisha, stop playing. You're good at what you do. You can do this. So then I have to go back and say that to myself, look in the mirror and say, Tanisha, you are good. You are supposed to be here. So yeah, that imposter thing is something that I just work through.
It is a loud voice that you just have to quiet all the time. I was legitimately in the car with this woman, Michael, who I am working on a project with in Norway, like this big, huge hotel project that I'm going to consult on, that I am beyond thrilled. And I'm on the phone with Jason Lett from the Irie Vineyards, because we're going to be filming for 67 Pall Mall. And the whole time I'm thinking, I don't belong here. I'm not going to make it. No, they're going to figure it out that I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, what is your problem, woman? You are literally in these two amazing places right now with two people who are wanting your time. Like I'm with the two of them at the same time. Like it was so crazy. Like I couldn't get out of my own way. And it's like, you need all these like moments to validate that you are where you're supposed to be. It is a loud voice that you have to really actively quiet and actively reassure, because it can get in your way a lot. I couldn't believe I was having these terrible thoughts while I'm in this beautiful moment. Like, yes, I'm supposed to be here. yes, I have the credentials. I'm okay.
Yeah, it's just something that I live with every day. And like they both said, at this point, we're friends. We love each other. And we we just coexist together every day. And that's my imposter syndrome. She's sitting over there. That's how I see it now. It's just like I said, we just exist together.
I love that. Elaine brought up a really interesting point in the chat that imposter syndrome correlates with intelligence and self-awareness, and that it's a sign that we're aware of ourselves in an important situation and have the intelligence to be aware of it, which I love that like positive twist. That makes me a little more friendly with my own imposter syndrome. Right. And then in our last 5 minutes, closing remarks, of course, but I want to hear what's next for y'all. Like, I feel all three of you have done a lot over the last year, changed your businesses, grown a lot. What's next on the horizon?
In-person events. I miss everybody. And so what's next for me is hopefully trying to plan an in-person event for this year for my community, even if we just get in a room and say cheers, how have you been, just reconnect, check in with each other. But yeah, that's what's next for me is in-person events, hopefully.
Okay, I'm gonna say mine here so you all can call me out and hold me accountable for this if I don't do it. But since tourists are coming back here, but I won't do tourism the same way that I did it before. I noticed that I need to focus more on the people who are here on the ground and who aren't getting that same wine information. People who have trouble with French or have trouble associating with French. So a membership club for expats for wine education and wine tastings. I'm taking them to wineries. We're going to wine shops. We're doing food and wine pairings with cooking schools. So I am in the works with that for the fall.
And please tell me that you're going to continue your podcast.
Oh, yes. And the podcast, we're actually doing that more regularly in the fall too. So you heard it here first.
Siobhan.
It's a long list, Kristen. What am I doing next? Dirty Radish is booked for the summer. Summer's done with tours and everything else under the sun. I am going to make wine again this fall. Making a co-fermented Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris. And then, yeah, as I said, I'm moving to Norway next spring to work on this project. And we are going to open in May of 2023. So that's sort of my next few years is being in Norway, building my dream wine list, which I'm excited about. Yeah.
Y'all are doing so many things. It's so inspiring. But thank you everybody for taking the time today to chat, and the vulnerability and honesty. It's inspiring. I love it. Does anyone have any questions before we jump off here? Any of our beautiful audience, a lot of thank yous.
Well, that was amazing, ladies. We can't thank you enough. What a great session. We'll let the chat continue to roll because I think there's lots of appreciation and lots of comments still to roll. But we just wanted to thank you for another empowering session today. Each of you brought so much to the conversation. We're just reminded again and again how important these conversations are for all of us, and that we are continuing to do the work. So thank you again to Kristen, Christy, Siobhan, Camila, and Tanisha. Thank you for a great session. And before we log off for the day, we'd also just like to do a final thank you to our sponsors, Napa Valley Vintners, Laurent Perrier US, Bay Grape, Nomatica, Amram Cork America, our glass sponsor, Gabriel Glass, Sonoma Broadway Farms, and 750 Daily, our media sponsor. And we're looking forward to joining us tomorrow, final day, day 3. And we're going to begin the day with mentorship, the community building block at 9:00 a.m. Pacific. And that'll be followed immediately. So same link tomorrow, one link for the whole day by women winemakers, the other 10% at 10:30 a.m. Pacific. And hopefully for those of you who live locally in the Bay Area, that we'll see you at our winemaker hosted walk around tasting at Sonoma Broadway Farms tomorrow afternoon. So thank you to everybody and have a great rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.